Thanks for helping me with all of this and doing a great introduction. And I can see a few people here that we've had lots of engagement with before. I can see Bryn Davies. Welcome, Bryn. Good to see you again.
Thanks. Been a while. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Fantastic. So this is our second version of the reference and master data management course, and we are having to refresh all our courses due to the revised edition. Not a lot of changes, but we just have to make sure that some of the wording and the terminology is used correctly. So this is going through a refresh. And what I will be showing you today is basically I keep a supporting documentation deck, and as I understand and recognize which ones are important and improve on some of my images, then I take them into the main deck. So you're seeing the uncut version, and happy to share more and more with you. So what I've also decided to do is that to break the webinar series up as usual into, first of all, our data manager, and then we go citizen, professional, and executive. A data citizen is someone that basically uses data and looks after data within the organization according to the policies and procedures. So basically, we use the term citizen because they adhere to the rules of the land, the organization, the country, and those are our data citizens. And you may be well aware of that, but they are the ones that will actually create quite a lot of standard operating procedures for master data and reference data. It's quite different to a lot of the other knowledge areas where the data citizen, data stewards get involved in a lot more work when it comes to reference and master data compared to data quality, where yes, they would do an expectation, but the data quality specialist will be the one implementing, ensuring that it runs all the time and things like that. So this is quite a unique area for the data citizen. Then we've got the data professional, and there you'll see they are responsible for the data models and then all other relationships with all other knowledge areas. So, for example, the RMD specialist will also interact with a data architect for standardization, will interact with data integration, data quality to make sure we got the right records, system of record. And then it's that incremental plan to ensure success. So how do we incrementally build projects within an organization to achieve success? Reference and master data can come with a big upfront cost of getting this whole thing established and getting all the data out of the different applications. So you don't want to go with a big bang and go everything from customer to product. I think you'll die and you'll kill a lot of people with you. They will lose interest in it. And then we also talk about choosing operational versus analytical, and that would be very important in terms of depends on where your challenges are and what your maturity levels are. But I'll be handling that today when we talk about a readiness check for the capability. How do we ensure that we need master data? First step, what are the challenges that we can build a business case and what are we trying to achieve? And then the final one will be from a data executive. So how do you build that business case? How do you identify the ROI and then make sure that you're delivering? Okay. And then aligning to the business strategy and subject area ownership. How do we bring the subject area ownership? First of all, you've got to bring it into the operating model from a governance framework. And then you've got to start allocating ownership. And this is where the politics start to escalate. And depending on your operating model, you could have quite a few different people involved. Okay. So that's the journey we're going to take. Hopefully we can go through every single detailed area so I can then also understand what would be helpful to bring into the specialist exam. Now, of course, what we do is pay attention to the type of questions that you need to answer as a for the CDMP specialist exam, but we would want to then expand and give you quite a lot more insight into why some of those questions have been asked and some of those master level questions. So what I did think of doing today was actually to start off with a few sample questions. Now, I'm hoping all of you have access to the chat. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to just see if you could, let's do question 1 in terms of what is the common motivation for reference and master data management? Okay. Is it there to improve data quality and data integrity across multiple data sources? Is it the need to build a data dictionary of all the core data elements? Okay. What about the regulation acts such as BCBS 239, GDPR, AML, KYC, and SOX? And then the need to consolidate all data into one physical database. And the last one is business intelligence and data warehousing. Is that why? And that's also known as analytical MDM, the 1E. So what would you have? What would you guess or understand to be the correct answer for question 1? Okay, let's see how we're doing. Okay, A from Mahir. Is that correct pronunciation, Mahir?
Yes, it is Mahir. Thank you.
Mahir. Okay, it's that the G sound. Any other options? Got Mr. Bolton there. Mr. Bolton is also saying A. Okay. All right. So just remember those answers, and we'll get back to it. Now let's look at the next one. I'm going to give you all the answers in one screenshot. Yes, there is something being shared. I think it may be a problem on your side. I am seeing other people answer it. So nice answer, nurse. The problem is you got to give me the best answer. So is which one is better between A and D? And what you will find is that a lot of these answers are correct, but which one is the best answer? All right. So now let's look at number 2. What is the valid definition of master data? Please remember it's master data, not master data management. Okay, so you got to be careful on that situation. So is it A, data that if missing or incorrect will cause transactions and processes to fail? All right. And B, data that is only held in one data source. C, data that other data sits hierarchical beneath. That's an interesting one. And then D, data that rarely, if ever, changes. And E is data about the business entities that provide context for transactions. Okay, great. Excellent. We're getting that one right. Okay. Notice how often you're seeing reference data there as well. Quite a few of these comments relate to reference data. Okay, now let's talk about the next one, which is number 3. Which of these is a valid definition of reference data? Data that is fixed and never changes, data used to classify or categorize other data, data that provides metadata about other data entities, data that's widely accessed and referenced across an organization, and then E, data that has a common and widely understood data definition. B. Okay. Nice, Sanchita. Anybody else? All right. For you, I hope you can see now. Ah, Mr. Bolton's got a star D. What's that mean, Mr.? What does a star D mean? A maybe. Okay. I must remember to put that in the CDMP exam. Okay. Which of the following is not a primary master data management area of focus? Generating a golden record, identifying duplicate records, producing read-only versions of key data items, providing access to golden data records, and then producing clear data definitions for master data. Who has an idea on that one? C. Okay. There's no star on this one, Paul. Are you confident?
Now that you ask,
I'm
going to edit the entry with a star.
No. Don't
No.
let me
No,
influence you. Okay. All right. A strong argument for pursuing a reference and master data initiative. So whenever you see strong argument, common driver, common motivation, you know that these things are going to go into your business case, right? So it will not require a lot of time and effort, right? Easy peasy. Just make the CRM system your master data, and there you have it. Or B, they are essential functions in the data management framework. And one would hope that all functions are essential in the data management framework. Job security for the data people. Yes, that's a good one. Once you get well known and well established, you certainly have a job for life. And by centralizing the management of reference and master data, the organization can conform critical data needed for analysis. Okay. Job security. Yes, it is certainly something that you'll be using a lot. Okay, then the next one is a common driver for initiating reference data. Okay, slightly different. And you certainly can have reference data in a different product compared to master data, although lots of master data systems like Informatica also manage reference data, but you may choose to have a separate one. And improve data quality and facilitate analysis. It can be a one-time only. Managing codes and descriptions requires a little effort and low cost. It consolidates the process of securing third-party code sets. Okay. All right. Okay. And then there's one of these horrible questions of reference data management includes defining relationships within and across domain value lists. Okay. So that's a good one. This is testing your data modeling skills as well. And the final one is, which of the following statements is true? Business data stewards maintain lists of valid data values for master data instances. Okay. Managing reference data requires the same activities and techniques as does managing master data. So do we have the same process, the same methods for managing reference or master? And then reference data management involves identifying the best or golden record of each domain. And the last one is master data management requires techniques for splitting or merging an instance of a business entity. And for an extra prize, if someone gives me the term that's used there for what are the different ways in which we can split or merge an instance of a business entity, and why would we do that? All right. So just in terms of those are the answers. Okay. Does anyone have any questions or disagreements? So first one was A, then the second one was data about business entities. The third one is classify or categorize reference data. The fourth one is producing read-only versions. Okay, certainly not. Master data can be edited and authored. So it's not about read-only. Yes, we may certainly provide read-only to our data warehouse or analytics, but that's about the only place. And then we have a strong argument is by centralizing the management of reference and master data, the organization can conform critical data needed for analysis. So that's very helpful. Okay. And all the other ones are very wrong. And this one here requires a lot. It will not require a lot of time or effort. That's wrong. Okay. Okay, and then common driver. This is improve data quality and facilitate analysis, and that's an important one. That's for reference data. And then reference data includes defining relationships. That's almost your foreign key or referential integrity for domain values. So that's true. And then we have the last one, which requires techniques for splitting or merging an instance of a business entity. And who knows what the term is for when we do that merging. There are two types of merging that we do within master data. Just trying to. Okay. Anyone know the term that we use?
Are you talking about survivorship, best of breed?
Survivorship is sort of the one that remains, or it's almost related to the golden value. And yes, Bryn, when you join multiple rows together to get a single row, and now that could come with multiple columns from different records. What is that process called?
Okay, I would have called it survivorship or a best of breed.
Okay.
Approach rules in terms of taking attributes from different potential master records and building the golden record. Yeah, from that.
Yeah. So what the DMBoK refers to it as a match merge.
All right. Okay. Of course. All right.
Yeah, and then you have.
I thought you were talking about the merge, not the match. The match becomes before the merge.
Yeah. Oh no. So so the merge will bring it all into one, and then it's matching certain records to create the golden record, and then you also have match link. Can anyone match link? You will keep all of the records that were there, and they would be linked to each other to show you from an audit point of view what the different records are. Whereas a merge will actually get rid of the other. Let's say you had 14 records, you get one record, and then the other 13 you lose them, you get rid of them. Okay. All right. So this is the DMBoK chapter, and I just want to show you the core elements of the DMBoK chapter and the different definitions. I'm not going to take you through all of that now, just to show you that even for the specialist exam, you're going to need to go through it and work through the original content. Okay, so just a core definition: managing reconciled and integrated data through stewardship and semantic consistency in support of enterprise-wide needs to share its data assets. And that one has changed slightly, the definition changed slightly with the revised edition. Okay. And then we have quite a few changes in terms of the deliverables. So define the drivers, evaluate the data sources. This is almost the steps. Define the architectural approach for the domain. Okay, so there's an important message there, is the case of not all domains will have the same architectural approach. So you may choose, for example, a virtualized approach. You may choose a registry. You may choose a centralized hub. You may choose a transaction hub, and depends on what you have within your environment and to the level that you want to go. You may choose a different approach. Okay. So it is important to recognize that you don't have to implement all of the domains in using the same technique and the same approach. Okay, I think it is helpful when you standardized on it, but there may be times, for example, when you believe that your CRM system is adequate for now, that you'd standardize on that, get it up and running, and then at some stage migrate to a centralized hub or something else, or even virtualized. Okay, so a virtualized is becoming more and more frequent these days, where you can create a virtual and you're not copying the data. Okay, you're really just transforming the data. Okay, then you have modeling the data, defining. Now, this modeling the data is typically when you have when you've chosen a product that doesn't have existing models set up for you. I always think that it's a valuable approach that you would then be able to identify what you expect to be there and what the application has. Okay, so you may find that there's extra elements that you have that are not part of the program, and you would need to go through the process of understanding where the differences are. Okay, establish the policies, and then implement data sharing and agreement and integration services. Sorry. Now, you'd also be part of that is data quality. Okay, so data quality is inextricably linked as you bring all of these records in. It's about then identifying your duplicates and then making sure that you clean it and standardize the data. So there's lots of things that need to be done. And then these are your deliverables that you'll create within the environment. All right, so let me just get back to reference and master data. These are where the governance comes in, is to recognize those sources that to be integrated. So we'd be looking for some form of data catalog that identifies where all of this data is. For example, the customer data, where is all the different data and which ones do we need to pay attention to? Now, due to silos, you can have the same data duplicated across the different data sources, and we will need to choose and understand where the golden values come from, or what people refer to as the system of record. So where's that master application where the data is authored? Okay, data quality rules, condition of use, and then we've got activities to be monitored, priorities, and response levels. So basically, as soon as you then allocate or set this up and you've got business procedures, let's say we've got a challenge in terms of that matching process that we spoke about just now, that can take some time to resolve, and you may actually need to phone somebody or contact the customer to check that it's right before you do it. And so then there's a time delay on getting those resolved. Okay. How much information is represented to meet stakeholder needs? Okay, so what is, people refer to that 360-degree view of all of the data. Well, how much information? And then how do we present it to our downstream people in terms of the warehouse? Okay. Standard approval gates, expectations in reference and master data deployment is what Wasim was talking about, is then rolling this out. And rolling it out to who? Do we start with rolling it out to our data warehouse, or do we start by ensuring that all our applications are in sync? And these are going to be part of your business case and the challenges that you are currently facing. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay, so that's what the DMBoK talks to you. That's the overview. Now, what I wanted to do is just spend a little bit of time focusing on what are the key areas that you need to focus on when it comes to reference data and master data. Now, the first thing that we need to be aware of is this, and the diagram I'm presenting here is this may look like your existing application prior to reference and master data. And you're now going to need to go through this process of collecting and bringing the data together, all the different areas. So sales has customer or party, marketing, operations, HR has employees, and they're part of the party. Then we've got finance, debtors, creditors, vendors, and then we've got IT that also has a system with all of this information. Okay, so the process we go through, and I certainly recommend starting with reference data because that's possibly going to be included in your master data. Okay, so let's bring the reference data, and then what we want to do is bring that all together, bring all the different data sources together, and where possible, let's get rid of some of those reference and turn off the authoring of those reference data systems within these different areas. So let's reduce the amount of copies where possible. That's not, they still need to access the data, so you can't just get rid of it. But where possible, that would be a good idea. And if they could point to that centralized store or have an integration, an API that they can use to access it, that would be fantastic. Then we'd go to party and we'd bring all the party data together. Okay, and where possible, if we could, that would be really nice. And the next one would be product. As an example, now you're choosing domain by domain, and we aggregate, collecting all the data, getting rid of where all of these duplicate copies are. And the idea is that what we are trying to do is that shared reference and master data now belongs to the organization. It doesn't belong to sales. It doesn't belong to marketing. So this is a process of almost moving that ownership out of the departments and back to the organization. Okay, so that's a key goal that we're trying to achieve is consolidating and moving the ownership of the data. Now, of course, we are going to have data owners that are part of those departments that take responsibility for some of those domains or sets of those domains. Yes, Bryn.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention what I often say is that, you saying it belongs now to the organization, is you actually build in what I like to call a demilitarizer, a DMZ, for master reference data. That actually resonates quite well often.
Yeah. And so people can check in the DMZ, and I'm assuming the reason you use the term DMZ is that you can see what data is coming in and what data is going out. Is that the reason for the term DMZ?
Well, it just takes a lot of the politics out of, because in the various areas there's sales, marketing, there's often, power plays, ownership discussion.
Okay. So it's not like
et cetera. So DMZ is all around the fact that that's, you actually taking the politics and the military aspects, if you like, out of the equation.
Okay.
Really.
Okay.
That's what I mean.
I always understand that one when it comes to data security and you create a DMZ, so internal people can't get data out and external people can't get attacks into the database.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more like an area that nobody's allowed to attack anyone else.
A depolitics zone, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that you're bringing a very important message there, and that's part of the challenge of establishing reference and master data is that depoliticking, removing the ownership, and then creating that central ownership and belonging to. So this data now belongs to all of those areas that had the data, but the authoritative source is now sitting in that centralized area. Great. Okay. And the exact location of where the data sits is dependent on your implementation style, but we'll get to that when we talk about the professional. Okay. So that's the first one. The next one is reference data is an ongoing data quality program. So yes, we also spoke about it being a major aspect of data integration and sharing data, but it's also about achieving quality. Yes, Wasim, I saw your hand go up.
Yes, it's okay. I saw you move to another slide. I just wanted to comment on what Bryn just mentioned in terms of the politics.
Yes,
I think
yes.
I think this is a very important point, and it is the main challenge that when it comes to implementing such projects, especially when you're dealing with a government entity. It's this is the actual challenge and this is why such, for example, MDM projects, they come at a later stage. You know, you start by establishing, like, let's say the data management committee or office, you know, and you work hard to build a decent operating data model. And then at least it's smoothening out. When you reach the phase that you want to implement an MDM, they are already, the business owners and users, they are already familiar with the ideas of ownership and sharing and all of these concepts. But yeah, I fully agree.
Yes, and what you'll see is I've got a readiness check in terms of saying, is the organization ready for reference and master data? And one of them is about, is data governance established, and have we started to create a culture that understands the governance of the data? So very important message that you bring there, Wasim.
Just one last question: is the chat disabled only for me, or it's?
No, there were quite a few other people that were entering. They entered all of these. So you can see here, Wasim, they entered all of the answers. So I think it may be, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll check.
I think it is disabled for if you have joined through our company's email ID.
Yeah. So you may have policies from your organization. Yes.
Yeah. Probably right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So ongoing data quality, and I actually quite like this. I don't know if you remember, when we do the data quality program, we have a big statement, about choosing critical data elements, and the bottom line statement is master data is always critical. Okay. So here we have central repository of critical data. Okay. Ensure that all the data across the organization is consistent and up to date. So we're paying lots of attention to the data that's sitting in our master data hub. Okay. The DQ, it's consistency, up to date, and accuracy. So that silo data, when we come in, we're going to see that's going to be the main contributor to data quality issues, and especially in the dimension of consistency. So we would have an application that represents their customers or attributes in this way, and another application represents it differently. Now we've got some challenges to be able to get a consistent view across those different siloed applications. Elimination of redundancy, that's where we're talking about merge. There's match merge is removing the duplications, and match link is not removing the duplications. You keep them there for audit purposes. So you can actually go back and say, well, what did this data look like in the different systems? Okay. We're trying to get support for trustworthy data for decision making. We want to be able to resolve a lot of the DQ issues. And I found, in terms of when I do a root cause analysis and a remediation plan for data quality issues, I find quite often that a master data or a reference data system is one of the options to be able to address your data quality issues. Okay, so these two go hand in hand. Now, remember, the data quality problems don't go away. They just get absorbed within the data, the master reference and master data problem, right? Domain. Ability to change. I think this is crucial. Data privacy has shown this a lot, where what happens to us is we now get the data privacy, and data privacy talks about every single individual or organization that's we're collecting data about. We now need to look after it. So I really like the work that Informatica does, where they have a data subject master domain, and they got everybody sitting in there. Yes, Kiro.
I just had a question on the elimination of redundancy. So I know you mentioned that you either keep the old references or remove the old references.
Yes.
But is there a possibility of keeping only the reference to the previously, let's call it, undated records? So where if I deduplicated and if I asked for one of the old records, that I get the golden record back. Is that an acceptable practice?
Okay, so let me just confirm what you're asking. So again, my understanding is let's put a scenario. I've got 4 applications. I bring 4 records in, and different columns are the best in terms of golden values. So let's use the term. I've got different golden values, and now I want to create a golden record of those 4 records. Okay. So when I do a match merge, I'm going to merge the 4 records into a single golden record, and then the other 4 have been removed. Okay. They no longer exist. Now, when I do a merge or a match link, basically I leave those 4 records there so that anybody can say I create the 5th golden record, and I say this data attribute golden value came from this record from this system. So that's the approach. Now, are you then also talking about historical, that it was this and it's now that? Are you talking about the merge process, or are you talking about the fact that I had an update from one of the systems and I've replaced the value?
The latter. It's what you said. So
okay. So that's that's very similar to being able to maintain what's the slowly changing dimensions in data warehousing. So you could see what the address was previously. Is that the question? Is that what you're trying to achieve?
What I'm trying to achieve is more so. So if I had records of keys 1, 2, 3, 4, and I created golden record, let's call it key 5.
Yeah.
That if I went and asked for a record number 2, that I'd get back record number 5, with being completely oblivious of the merge process. I want kind of the best of both worlds. If you understand my question.
I don't believe it. I haven't seen that work like that. Basically, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build the golden record that all of my publications will present the golden record. Okay, so when I have the publication, so we ETL the data from the systems, it goes into the centralized hub, and then we publish either to the analytics data warehouse, or we can publish back to the other applications. Okay, now what we'd want to do is once we've established the golden record, we would then try to get the other applications in line, okay, that they're all singing the same thing, or we go downstream to the warehouse and it will just have record number 5 and not the other records when it goes to the application. Does that make sense, Kira?
Yes, I think so. I think do want to have a further discussion, but maybe we can touch base.
So you can certainly have the idea of a slowly changing dimension, and you can record all of the changes on that golden record, so that any point in time you can say from this date to this date, that was the value, and that helps you simplify your data warehouse, data mart, slowly changing dimension. That is also supported in master data. Okay, Bryn, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I was wanted to say, so in our experience, once you've done the match, there's 3 things you can do. You can merge, like you're talking about now. So that's doing the best of breed survivorship I was talking about. And any good master data management system will automatically keep the linkage in place in terms of, how that golden record was made up. And it will maintain that over time as well, so that you can audit. The other thing you can do is link, and it's a different semantics here in terms of your link. So link would be saying, you're not going to merge, but you're going to choose one of the matched records as the master record, based on whatever rules, the latest or whatever it might be, and then via a new sort of group key link the other children records, if you like, to that. And then the third activity or the third possibility is to do a dedupe, which would be a physical delete of duplicate records based on whatever rules you come up with as well. But now this is all within the context of the MDM hub itself. Where it becomes really interesting is once you've done that, how does that relate back to the source systems? Okay.
Yeah.
And particularly if you need to then update the source systems with whatever you've done in your MDM hub, that's where it gets quite tricky and interesting. But those, we try to categorize it along those lines in terms of those activities.
And are you saying that the entire record is overwritten by one application? In that one example you gave, you're saying that, for example, System 3 wins the entire record, but it doesn't necessarily mean that System 3 has all the columns of all systems.
No. So I'm talking about what happens in the hub itself. All right.
Yeah.
And you know, to answer your question there, that very much depends on whatever architectural style you got going. You know, is it a purely just a consolidated style, which is probably read only for analytics only, or we talking a more transactional style, which those kind of questions then come up, and that's all around, you know, your actual data rules and your business rules as to what wins, what doesn't win, what's the granularity that you've got in your hub versus your source systems, etc. So it depends.
But I suppose what I'm asking, with respect to the merge, which we were talking about, or creating of the golden record, I thought you said that you would choose one system to have the golden record, to like key 2 would become the golden record.
No, not necessarily. No. Your golden record in the merge context would be made up of the best attributes from all matched records.
Yeah, that's what they refer to as the golden values. The golden values then come together to be a golden record, and then golden records come together to make a golden profile. But the important thing here is just to recognize that there are different techniques for establishing that record and keeping the history or the audit in terms of how you got there. And so
absolutely, yeah. And what I'm saying is that a good MDM technology would do that, should do that automatically.
Yeah, the one that I suppose the term good now becomes the debate. Okay. Okay, great. All right, so then we have the ability to change, and that's where we get lots of focus on new regulations coming out, new requirements, new quality levels, and that's great from a master data point of view, because you've now got almost this centralized authoritative source of the data that would go to your downstream reporting for regulations, and you can address that pretty quickly. Okay, and then we have the risk management. Once we understand where a lot of this comes from, it's nice to be able to do that. Now, lately, what I found, Bryn, I don't know if you've seen that, but we're actually using Data Vault as the collection area. The raw Data Vault is the collection area for all the systems from all the records, and then that gets promoted from there, because the Data Vault is doing that anyway for the data warehouse, and that's almost a stepping stone to build your master data system as well. Okay. All right. Now, the critical stakeholder.
Got it. And I think, that's fine in an analytical context. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it's really the process of transferring the data into a common area. And the nice thing about the Data Vault, especially the data satellites, they can keep a satellite per system. So you can see all of the system data that it was ingested from any one point in time, and it keeps all of that data in that area. Okay. All right. So here are our key stakeholders and some of the RACI models that we have. So we've got our chief data officer, and they are responsible for the overall data strategy and the governance for the organization. Okay, the accountabilities. Now, in the data strategy, they should be identifying the need and the motivation for our reference and master data. And then it will be about prioritizing that at the right time to introduce a reference and master data program. We know it needs to come, but it's about when it comes and is the operating model ready for it at this point in time. Then we've got our data governance steering committee, and they about funding those initiatives. We then got the Data Governance Council that will ensure the successful delivery and dealing with the initiatives of reference and master data. We got the data owner that's accountable for a data domain. And then we've got the data steward that's responsible for the day-to-day management, the domain values where it's not coming from a third party and it comes internally. And then we have the golden value record profile that the data steward's going to be managing, as we've been talking about with that match merge process. And then we've got the reference and master data practice management, a practice manager. They're responsible for setting up the practice. It may be a COE, and they are going to have all of the appropriate specialists that can do the job. And then we've got IT that will be responsible for the technical infrastructure, managing Informatica, the storage, all of those type of situations. So those are some of our key stakeholders and where the important RACIs sit. Now, moving on to this golden values records profiles. Okay, so golden, just a golden definition, typically is the most accurate and reliable. Now we have the golden value, the value for a specific attribute, column or column sets. And that would be after you do your data quality across the different data sources, and before you start bringing them in, you could do an assessment of the state of these different data sources, where they sit, and you can then have an identification of a specific data source where you'd trust to bring that data in and to win in that merge scenario. Okay, that can be used for some level of automated merging. Golden record is a comprehensive, consolidated view of an entity, most accurate, complete, and current view of an entity. And that's the one that you want to hold on to, and then ship towards downstream, where the downstream partners, especially in analytics, do not want all of those duplicates. They really don't want to deal with that. There may be times, but I haven't seen a situation where you ship all the duplicates down to the analytical environment. Okay, then we have a golden profile. This is a holistic view of an entity across various dimensions and attributes. So now we're talking about many tables that build it up. So that golden record can get pretty challenging when it's getting bigger and bigger. And now the latest terminology that they've introduced is a golden profile. Okay, and this is a complete understanding of a resource. So if we think about an employee, it would be everything from their identification to their qualification to whatever data they bring in that needs to identify them. That would be part of that complete understanding. Okay. Now, how golden works? Well, we bring about the collection, we bring about the cleaning to remove any errors or to get the format standardized, integration into that unified view. So we got that almost that sort of staging area. Then we go through the golden values identification, golden record from the golden values, and golden profile from the golden record. So this is quite an extensive process of building up the authoritative source that's going to be used for a couple of reasons. I would certainly recommend using analytical MDM first to get that all working, and then looking at having real-time updates or operational MDM back onto the applications, depending on the challenges that they are facing. Okay. And whether they are able to change some of the formats and some of the other challenges that you have. Okay. So I wanted to also really just talk about these in the DMBoK. They use many different terms: system of records, system of reference, database of records, analytical system of record. And I wanted to just show you how these terminologies stack up and fit together. So the system of record is the application, the source, the authoritative data source of the data element where the authoring is taking place. That's what the system of record terminology is. The system of reference is that centralized hub or consolidated view. It is now deemed to be the authoritative source. Now, what is interesting is that system of reference becomes the analytical system of record. Okay, so what we're trying to do is to stop the data warehouses and data marts to go back to this individual system of record. Let's reduce the complication of integration and come to the analytical system of record. Okay, and typically this is what it looks like when you build it out. You can now have, can you see there's the product master domain, and the product master domain is broken up to basically that profile that we were talking about, and the parts data can come from this application and the documents, and they may be completely different operational systems that are responsible for the authoring. Okay, now we have ETL that goes from the applications to the master data, and then we have synchronization, which pushes back and tries to get these different systems up to date. And this is where we refer to it as an operational MDM. Okay. And then we also have the possibility of bringing in third-party reference data providers into our product reference data. Okay. And as soon as we do that, whatever was in those different areas or different applications should be replaced by the third-party reference provider. Is everyone comfortable with the operational MDM? Okay, so there can be what people are using the term reverse ETL, that it comes in and then it gets pushed back on the other side. And they also use reverse ETL in this situation where we publish to the enterprise data warehouse, and now this data is now moving downstream to the EDW, or what we call as the subscriber. And these can be external parties, B2B, where we're sharing master data with our partners. It could also be an operational data store or a data mart. Those are examples of subscriber. And this flow down here is what we typically refer to as analytical MDM. Now, I'm sure you can see that the ability to get analytical MDM right before operational MDM is a lot easier in compared to getting all of these applications in standardized formats, same structure, same design. To get that harmonization of the application can take quite a bit of time, and a lot of times I don't see that happening because you may be buying applications off the shelf, and that's not where we go. Okay, so that's the system of, these are all these different elements that come into play in this scenario. Okay, now the types of data that's also important for us. And I saw a really nice link that Ronald Barn had in terms of the different types of data. Here we can see metadata, reference data, master data, transaction data, local data, and derived data, almost sitting almost at our enterprise warehouse. Okay, so let's just look at this situation, and this is where some of the justifications and motivations for reference and master data come along. The impact of having something wrong all the way from the business definition will affect everybody downstream of this. whereas the impact of a problem in the transaction will not affect the master data or the reference data. Okay, so impact is growing as we go up and volume is growing as we go down. Okay, so reference data, category information, master data is our resource information, typically high levels of abstraction from a data modeling point of view. And this provides context data for the business transactions and extra data. And I'll show you an example of that. We then have transactional data. These are the business events, facts, dimensions, and data produced by business transactions. And then we have our detailed transaction information, and I'll share a little bit of that with you as well. Okay, this also helps us produce wide data sets and all the details, but it can also be more your Internet of Things or your sensor data that can roll up to your transaction. Okay, so if I just go through this scenario, this is a story of Howard stopping to get some coffee. The customer is Howard. Okay, and then I pay Saudi Riyals, 25 Saudi Riyals for a double espresso at Starbucks. Okay, so the currency SAR is reference data. Okay, the business event is paid 25 Riyals for one double espresso, and the double espresso is sitting at my product master data. Now, my detailed data or the Internet of Things can be the sensor data from the coffee machine, in terms of what was the pressure, finely ground, what were the beans, the hot water, the temperature. And it's these type of things where when I complain that my coffee tasted bad, they can go back to the detailed information to look at that. Okay. Now, there's different levels of different models and ways of collecting all of that as well. Okay, so just to go through, what is the transaction data again? So this is just the description, and we'll take that and we'll break it up into what we call the 5 W's and 2 H's. So it's who, what, where, when, how, and how many. Okay, so can you see the how many is also involved in this one? And this is how I take that event that happened and I break it up into the different elements. And I can then go a level further using my customer master data, and I see, all right, that's the code. This is the product code, the location, the date, the payment method, the quantity, the currency, and the amount. And now I get a complete transaction view of it. Okay. Yeah, 5 wives and 2 husbands. Okay. All right. Now, this is another example of someone buying a bar in Morrison's, and we do the same thing. We break it up, and this is the data that's going to be stored in the fact tables, but of course, they would be stored as surrogate keys. So this would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. You wouldn't want to keep these alphanumeric values in your fact tables, in your data mart. It's going to grow too big, and it's going to get too hectic. Okay. So everyone understand transaction data. Now, what I wanted to share with you is what master data and reference data do for us is that they add all of this extra information that we didn't find in the transaction. For example, you may have thought Bob Smith was a male. Well, it's actually a female, and they work for British Airways. Now, all of this extra information is very valuable for advanced analytics, looking at patterns and things like that. Yes, Sanchita.
Thank you, Howard. Just a question, since you brought in, surrogate keys. There was a question around, SCDs, the relation of the surrogate key that is maintained in a slowly changing dimension. Is it something that an MDM system will maintain for an entity
Yes.
Okay, so it was different IDs. Yeah.
Yes, so master data can be used to manage your slowly changing dimensions, and that reduces the complexity of your analytical side, or your ETL, and then your data, your dimensions on the other side.
And so could we actually, have the MDM system function as, provide us a SCD kind of a dimension? Is that a right expectation from an MDM system to give us
Yes, it
something like
can.
an SCD?
So yes, it can perform that function. And if we think of all of those things on match merge and match link and history, it's keeping that data for you. Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Howard. That was
Good.
one question I always had. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, it's a very helpful thing where you can, and I did that once on one application that I built. I was building a massive data warehouse thing, and when we brought in a master data system, it was so nice to be able to almost scratch all of that work we were doing, clean it out, and then just pull from the publication from the master data, and it had all of that information for me.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Sure. Yeah.
So it does reduce your life, but then it also allows us to store all of this extra dimensional information in the system and then bring in that wider data set, more details that help you understand a lot better than just Bob Smith. You may jump to a interesting conclusion with it. Okay, so the next step in terms of bringing up that reference data error. So I remember I shared that with you in terms of the impact, and we can just see now that when I make a reference data error, the amount of data that can go wrong is all the work orders created against those assets will have this error. Okay, so a reference data can impact many work or all the work orders, whereas master data will have a wrong address and it will just be for that resource. And then the transaction may be just the wrong date. Okay, so you can start seeing, and the problem gets even bigger when you, for example, have an incorrect definition, an incorrect data model, or an incorrect data flow, an incorrect definition of the asset, or an incorrect model, or like, for example, a many-to-many when there shouldn't be a many-to-many, there should be a one-to-many or a one-to-one. If you mix up that relationship, you can also pick up all sorts of challenges there as well. So again, metadata can cause even more problems than reference data because it's providing the contextual definition. All right. Okay, and then this is just refers to our reference data change management. Reference data change management is not as simple as everyone thinks. You can't just go and overwrite all of the values in that reference data definition, okay? Because we may be dependent on some of them, and we want to be able to identify who's going to be impacted by it, understand the impact that it's going to cause, decide on the update and when it must take place, decide and communicate, and then update and inform. Okay, so a nice example I had of was the currency change in Zambia many years back, and it actually went from I think it was ZWB or ZMB, and it went to ZMA and went to ZMB. And part of it was also a reduction on number of decimal points from the original currency then to the next currency. It brought about a truncation of 3 decimal places. Now that impact was massive, and it actually took a whole long time. We actually had to close the accounting books and reopen, and it was a big impact. Okay. All right, so I've got to 7:15. I wanted to just quickly show you the readiness assessment. These are the things that you need to take into consideration: maturity, culture, and level of change. These are the indicators, the objectives of getting the state of data governance. So do a DMMA in your organization about the state of governance, the state of quality, the state of data integration, the state of data modeling, and the state of metadata. All of these things can impact your DMMA. Okay, pay attention to your culture. if you have prioritized governance already understood, they understand the risk, that helps you tremendously. Okay, employee engagement, collaboration, working together to overcome it, and then accountability. Someone is willing to take data ownership. Okay, that brings things on KPIs and changes. So there's quite a bit to that. And then, of course, change management is going to help you with the transition. Okay, help the people overcome the fear and issues like that. And the last thing I wanted to show you was decision mandates. I use this in terms of understanding, just going to go through that. Where are my big bet decisions? Where are my cross-cutting decisions? So can you see here, cross-cutting means it goes across all of the departments. Big bet is you take it, you don't do it very often, and there's a big justification and initiation. And then you've got delegated decisions and ad hoc decisions. So I like to break this up across my different personas and basically say, okay, CDO, steering committee, this is who recommends, oversees, approves. Okay, and then you can see that they get out of the game of routine delegated ones and ad hoc. So they're not part of that. Then we talk about our data managers. What decisions do they make? Where do they get involved? What do they monitor? And then our professionals, again, what are they responsible for? And a lot of this comes from our data architect in terms of understanding where our master data domains are, what are the dependencies. And this is a nice dependency in terms of recognizing that please don't go and implement, for example, assembly structure management when you haven't got product parts and you haven't got product management. Okay, so you've got a dependency, and this is going to cause you problems with implementation. And you need to work with the data architect to understand those different areas. All right, so sorry about the overrun. Are there any questions or comments?
Maybe just one comment from my side, Howard.
Yeah.
The slide you had earlier around stakeholders.
Yes.
Most often we find that organizations starting to or wanting to implement master data management do not have the governance structures, roles, responsibilities in place in general.
Yeah.
However, we found that in pursuing the MDM program, it's a wonderful catalyst and vehicle to at least get those kinds of structures, roles, responsibilities going and to start building momentum for them. And it's on the back of a very good reason. If there is vested interest in the MDM solution, provided obviously the business case and all that, has been accepted.
Yeah. So yeah, that is you will find that, and I think what you are saying is that to bring in MDM, you're going to have to bring in data governance at the same time. So that's the catalyst to introduce data governance. Is that a good summary of what you said?
That's a good summary. Absolutely, yeah. And MDM or an MDM solution in and of itself, it will not be successful in the long run without those people process elements, certainly provided by data governance. As well as a very strong focus on data quality in and of itself as well, not just in conjunction with MDM.
Yeah, so
they work together.
Yeah, agreed. Certainly there, and my reticence on leading with reference and master data is that I've seen quite a few failures of a master data implementation, and it hasn't certainly been me, but I've gone in to have to do a maturity assessment, and then they say they've got all these different duplicates, and they tried to fix it with master data, but they were just basically immature in across a lot of the areas, and they didn't recognize the importance of having that operating model and structures to make the right decisions and things like that.
Absolutely. And if it's driven primarily only out of IT, that's a recipe for disaster as well.
Yeah. And I think there's sometimes we feel it's a quick fix, or it's we got all this data aggregated in our warehouse and now we can just build a master data system on it. That's also a big temptation that I see. So now we've done all the ETL, now let's do a consolidation, which is sort of what the enterprise data warehouse is telling us, but it is a lot more to it than just consolidating it.
Not the same thing at all.
Yeah. It certainly tries to present a single record, a single record of the truth, but it takes a while to get that right. And of course, we are saying that in some cases the steward will make certain decisions and could author in some ways that and correct the data. So we talk about that thing of being we remember in data quality we have the automated correction, and then we have automated directed and manual directed. And automated directed the system will tell us where the problems are and a steward fixes. And then manual directed is you almost just put a screen in front of the steward, and master data is good for that, where you can list all of these records that should be matched, and then they start helping you make the decision about what the golden record is. So I've also seen people jump onto Microsoft CRM and say that's our transaction hub, our implementation style, that's our CRM system. But not many people agree with it, and then the whole behavior they still start extracting from other areas. So yes, it's certainly a solution that if you're going to lead with master data, you're going to have to bring data governance with you and get it up and running. And I always would prefer to have a data strategy that is highlighting these issues, and then choose it, prioritize it, understand the technical feasibility, and then go with that. So yeah, there are different drivers and different ways that come in there. Wasim, any comments? I know you were commenting on it.
Sorry, come again, Howard?
Do you have any comments about leading with master data as the driver for governance?
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I wasn't focusing the last 5 minutes. Is it something you were just discussing, or you were?
Yeah, no, we were just discussing because what Bryn was saying, which I have seen is a case of sometimes people want the master data, and then when you come in to implement, you've got to be really clear that if you don't have data governance, this thing is going to fail. And so it pulls data governance in, and then you don't need to deal with that side of it as well. So
the driver is the master data management.
Yeah.
And by default, or in parallel, you would have the governance set in place.
Yes.
This is what.
Yes. Correct.
Well, I haven't seen that, but I mean, it might work. I mean, I would assume eventually, if you're doing it as a prerequisite or as an in parallel activity, and you have some kind of mature organization that you're working with, I think this could be feasible. Yeah.
And especially if it's a well acknowledged set of people on the steering committee and at the executive level of the reason for these things. So typically you're fighting multiple challenges at the same time with the execs.
I wouldn't recommend it, though, to be honest with you, especially if it's if it's a new endeavor for an organization. I would rather start small. At least do the governance part initially.
Right.
See how
it can work though, because we'll see. We've done it. We've actually just been doing this at a customer, and it's exactly how it worked, and it actually worked pretty well.
Was it a large
they'd originally tried data governance just top down, and that if it doesn't have anything tangible coming out of it, it can kind of wheel spin. Whereas with the master data program, you very quickly get to things like, well, what is data quality? What are the rules to merge or to match? and business has to be involved. So all of a sudden you need to form, let's call them working groups. They might not be called governance groups or committees or anything like that, but those working groups have to have business people involved, and organically that can evolve to your ultimate data governance kinds of structures. So it's certainly possible, but the maturity in terms of the acceptance of the fact that master data management is absolutely necessary, and there's a very strong business case, has to be there at the business level as a prerequisite.
I agree with you that this kind of a quick win is important. And sometimes, I mean, what I've witnessed is not through an MDM. It was more of a business intelligence, showing some kind of building data engineering pipelines, working with a small sector within a large organization, where you can show, okay, this is the beauty of what you can have and see, and what would support your decisions, and through what needs. I mean, through this whole process of data management end to end. But yeah, I mean, what you suggested makes sense, makes total sense. I would say that it depends definitely on the number, on the size of the organization you're dealing with. Maybe it would be smart choosing a smaller team and to start with at least. So yeah, but it makes sense. I agree.
Yep.
And I think what is helpful is to do that readiness assessment in terms of your maturity, and then when if you've got no quality experience and no one really understands it, you're gonna have to tackle a few practices to get it in. And again, it all depends on the value and the biggest challenge that they're facing. So what is that biggest challenge, and then let's bring it in, and the willingness to sort it out is critical. So
one of the main aspects, I'm not sure, maybe you did mention it throughout the presentation. I think having at least a catalog in place, even as simple as a basic Excel sheet, this is something that is also very important to start with in MDM practice, as far as I've seen.
Yeah, and these days with things like Data Hub, which are open platforms and they can run both in-house or on the cloud, you can go through that and really build a data dictionary pretty quickly of your different data assets. And it's a nice place to start. It's quick, and you just got to be careful on the mess that you create once reading every single data source. But anyway, that's I see Pavan's hands up. Yes, sir. Pavan?
Sorry, by mistake.
No problem.